Line's good.
Never on.
Close.
Hard. Please.
Come on, Brent. Line's good. Got real close.
The hair high, right?
Try and hit 2/3.
Have they saved it for her? Yes, they have.
Ooh, welcome to Game of Stones, everybody. I am Sean Graham. Scott not alongside this week. He's off writing an angry Yelp review because the Chateau Leblanc 68 was supposed to be served slightly chilled, and his was room temperature. But have no fear, we will continue on. We will bravely face this unknown future without Scott, at least for the time being, with a wonderful guest this week. You may remember back in the fall, we sponsored a junior team, Team Davies, out of Edmonton. They are part of the University of Alberta, that whole curling program. We sponsored them, and we mentioned in that episode two of the team members, Zach Davies, the skip of that team, and Adam Naugler, were going to play in the World Junior B Curling Championships. The men in 2023, they were relegated to the Junior Bs, chance to get to the Junior As by going to the Junior Bs. And Adam and Zach were part of that team, skipped by Johnson Tao, and they went to the World Junior Bs. They were successful, got Canada into the World Junior As, and they played in that event in February in Lohja, Finland. Went 4-5 at the World Juniors, finishing in 7th place. We'll see what that means for next year. They have not announced the host city for the World Junior As next year as we record this. So we'll see how it all kind of shakes out in the wash to see where Canada will end up for the World Juniors on the men's side for next season. For Adam, that's it for him in his junior career. He aged out of juniors. Not a bad way to go into 2 world championship events, but that's it. So once you get to that age, it's the part about juniors. Once you pass that threshold, you are done at the junior level. And Adam, this season was his final at the junior level. So we wanted to invite him on to talk about the season, certainly, and what went into the World Junior Bs, the quick transition over to the Junior As, but also a little bit about the state of junior curling in Canada. What are some of the challenges of it, the benefits of it, what resources were made available to Team Tao after they won the Canadian Junior Curling Championship, and just get his sense of where things are, especially given that a few years ago, Curling Canada did change the structure and the schedule for junior curling. It used to be that World Canadian Junior Championship was in January. Winners would go right to the World Championship in February. They changed it so now that the Canadian Junior Championship is later in the season in March. And then the teams that win that have all summer to prep for the World Juniors, whether it's the B or the A's. But that also means that age-wise, it's a little tougher. And Adam talks about it, that one of the guys they won the Canadian Juniors with aged out at the end of last season. So it does lead to some questions there as to whether or not this is the most equitable way they would do this, the best way to do it. Is it the best way to set up Canada for success moving forward? I don't think that the juniors was used as a test bed to see a potential change to the men's and the women's by having maybe the team that wins Scotty's Briar or whatever they potentially could change it to go to the World Championship the following year, but who knows? So wanted to talk a little bit about what that was like for him and the team going through that full calendar year as the Canadian men's junior champion. So Adam was nice enough to give me some of his time and to be patient through a couple of tech issues that I had over the course of our recording session. So I really appreciate him taking the time from his summer to chat with me. Really enjoyed this conversation. Think you will as well. So let's get right into my chat with Adam Naugler. All right. And Adam Naugler joins me now. Adam, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you, Sean?
Doing well. Thanks for coming back on the show. We're not going to talk too much about Team Davies tonight because I'm going to talk to the skip of Team Davies later about how that season went. We're going to talk to you about junior curling, because your career as a junior curler is now over. You have crossed to the other side, with the rest of us being too old to play in juniors. Before we get into some of the specifics, what is that like for you? And just knowing that that part of your career is over and now you're going to transition into the next phase of your curling career, whatever that looks like.
Haven't really thought about it much. Like we normally play a lot of men's events anyways throughout a season, so kind of have already been integrated into that world, and I guess it'll probably hit me a bit more when I step back onto the ice in August.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll see. We'll see how I feel then.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, obviously you have come from a very accomplished curling family. Has your family talked about it at all, and next steps, what that looks like?
Not really. Like my dad didn't really play juniors, or like he had lots of success in the men's, going to a bunch of Briars. But my mom, she actually won Canadian juniors and went to the world juniors, winning a bronze there. I think that was in like 1995. So I guess she would know more about like that transition from juniors to women's play, but haven't really asked them about it. Kind of just been thrown into it, I guess.
Yeah. It'll be an interesting transition to see how it goes. Certainly the men's game has been in some level of flex, certainly big changes out in Alberta where you are. So see how the landscape all shakes out. Just out of curiosity, did anybody call you with all the shakeups that were going on, or did you seek anything out, or were you just kind of hanging out? You're still in school, like just take it easy.
I don't think I'm quite at the level yet for those big teams to be ringing up my phone. Maybe in a couple of years I'll be on their radars, but yeah, I was just kind of sitting back and watching all of it unfold and kind of talking to my buddies about what we thought was going to happen. Definitely that botcher announcement that was most recent was a little bit surprising.
Yeah, it certainly caught us by surprise here. But it opens up Alberta a little bit, moving forward on the men's side, given the three spots that are guaranteed to Briars. So the Alberta provincials are going to look very different next year on the men's side. So it'll be fun to watch that and see how it all shakes out. So let's get into a little bit about your season specifically before we start talking a little bit big picture. You were playing with Team Davies, as we established last year in the fall, and you were also on the Canadian junior team, Team Tao, and that team had to go to the relegation round, or the last, whatever they call it, the World Junior Qualifying event. We'll just call it the relegation qualifier, for lack of a better term. So you guys had to do that, and then after you were successful getting the berth in the Worlds, go to the World Junior Curling Championship. So let's start with that initial relegation round. What was that experience like for you? What was that event like? Because I would imagine, and having never been on a Team Canada, that there would be a sense of pressure that Canada doesn't miss world championships. It's not something that happens for us. So just being in that and having to earn that berth, did you guys ever, players talk about the weight of the maple leaf and all that. Did you feel that at all while you were there, or just what was that experience like?
I think there was definitely that like expectation for us to do really well at that event and move on to the junior A's. I think that kind of got like the pressure kind of built up a bit because I don't know if you looked at like the line scores from that event, but we didn't necessarily have the easiest path to the playoffs there. We got in based off of our last zone draw. I think only Hong Kong had a better one than us, but they were way down in the standing. So I think just kind of seeing how close we were to maybe not making the playoffs at that event, it definitely was a little bit of pressure for us. But yeah, that the environment at the World Junior Bs was very unique because it was played in like the Sports Institute in Finland. So we're like very isolated in like a very remote part of Finland. I think we're like an hour and a bit outside of Helsinki. and like on this campus that was like 20 minutes outside the nearest town. So very isolated. We basically slept in like a hotel, like residence type thing. And then either like we went to the dining hall, went to the curling rink, went to the dining hall, and then went back to our hotel to rest up. It was like very structured. Didn't like we weren't really going out and exploring much because just trees and rocks and lakes around us. So yeah, it was like, and there was nobody in the stands either, right? Like you had some of the students who were at that facility who were the volunteers for the event, and like some of them would come and watch sometimes, but it wasn't like the Canadian juniors here, that the one that we won, where like in Quebec, whenever the Quebec team was playing, everybody from like the small town that we were in would come out and just cheer at everything they did. It was not an environment like that at all. It was like dead quiet, like you're playing like a regular league night in a club or something.
Right, but probably even a little quieter, I would assume, because at least in a typical curling club, it's small enough that you get a lot of reverberation of sound off the walls and stuff. If you're in an arena setting and there's nobody in there, like I remember the pre trials were in Ottawa here, and nothing was going on. And I was in there, it was me and the players and a couple volunteers, and it was dead silent. If there were teams discussing, if a shot wasn't coming down the ice, it was eerie. So I would imagine that it was almost unsettling and something you had to get used to.
Yeah, it was definitely like that, especially during the round robin play. But when we got to playoff times and the majority of teams had been eliminated, they would of course come and watch and do some cheering. So it kind of transformed later on in the event. But yeah, for the majority of it, it was like that very quiet environment, not much going on. But yeah.
So you guys get the spot in the World Championship. So you come home, get back into the routine, and then you got to go off and play in the World Juniors. Was it 3 months later? And what was that process like for you guys in terms of your preparation, knowing that you have to go travel again, you're going overseas again? Like, just how do you go from building to the World Junior qualifier to the World Juniors? What type of organization does that take, and just mental and physical preparation?
Yeah, so right after we got back from the World Bees, it was right around Christmas time. So we all went back to wherever we were going for Christmas, had a quick break, and then I think we were all back by like the 28th or 29th back in Edmonton to get training again. And all of our training is like pretty regimented. We got like 2 to 3 practices per week with coaches. And then, yeah, we played some, like, because we were also part of the University of Alberta program, like it was pretty easy to find people to play scrimmages against. And like Rob Krebs, who's also national coach, who's also the head coach of the Golden Bears and Pandas program there. Like we had access to our Curling Canada coach all the time pretty much. So like it was pretty easy for us. It was just like the regular groove that we would have in any other season. Just, I guess the difficult part is like you're trying to peak twice, right? Like you got the junior Bs that you're trying to peak for, and then like right after that you're having to peak again after like that short break. So I guess we were just trying to like maintain that level that we were at and like build upon that in between that time.
And did you feel like you guys were able to accomplish that? Let's set aside the result of the World Junior Curling Championship. Let's set that aside, because the field now is so tight, right? As like how the junior Bs, it was tight throughout. Mm-hmm. So the A event is going to be even tight. Like there's a lot of good teams around the world. So, and we've talked about this on the show before, that we have to set aside this idea that Canada will just show up and win, because that's not the case. But in terms of the things that you can really control, like your own execution, communication, being prepared, did you guys feel like you were able to maintain and build to the World Juniors effectively, given the time that you had, and just sort of walk us through what that process looked like?
I think so. We had like little over a month, like a month and a half of time between like our Christmas break and when we had to leave for the World Junior A's. So like within that time, we had like our practices. We had a couple of sessions with our mental training coach and like our couple scrimmages, and like even before the World Junior B's, we spent a lot of time. Like we had some sessions with Scott Pfeiffer to really like refine our front end communication and work on that. So I think it was just like really making sure that we were just ironing out some of the issues that we may have seen from the World Junior B's, like be that like mental things that may have popped up, or I guess like strategy issues or something like that. And like like using that time to kind of make those adaptations, well, like understanding that the level of play at the World Junior A's was going to be what we experienced on like the top end at the World Junior B's, and like you're not going to play against like the two types of teams the exact same, so kind of tailoring it more to that.
So you mentioned that you had access to your Curling Canada coach who's at the University of Alberta. You just mentioned a mental like a sort of sports psychologist type of a coach. What does Curling Canada provide for the rep? So you guys win last year through the summer, through the fall, and to the events. What resources, both in terms of personnel, we don't really have to talk about money if you don't want to, but like what are the resources that Curling Canada sets you guys up with once you have won the Canadian juniors?
Well, so we got like the berth into the points bet. And then while we were there, we got some ice time with Helen Radford and David Murdoch. We only had one session because they were working with the wheelchair teams there as well. And of course, you had the points bet event going on, and not a lot of free ice time during that. So we had access to them. We were in a pretty unique situation where like we were all like associated with the University of Alberta, so it was pretty easy to like swap between Team Davies and the team going to the Worlds. And yeah, of course, like Rob Krebs, he's a Curling Canada national coach, does a lot of programming for them, and is also the head program coach at the University of Alberta. So like, we had access to him all the time, and I'm not quite sure if that would have been the same for a team where like that may have not been the situation.
Right.
Like I'm pretty sure Team Plet was in like the same or a similar situation. Like they had Dave Nedowin coaching them, and like
pretty close connection
probably
there,
lots of good resources that they had access to as well. But like I'm not sure. And like we always trained at like the National Training Center in Edmonton as well, at the Saville. So that's where like if there's a slam in Alberta, you see all of the pro teams, like the Australian mixed doubles team comes there and trains. You see a lot of overseas teams based in Edmonton and training there. So I think we were just in a really unique position that we had access to all these Curling Canada resources a lot more frequently than some other teams. But yeah, we had some sessions with Scott Pfeiffer. He's based out of Edmonton. And then the mental training coach, I believe Curling Canada gives some money to the teams to like pay for one. And we had one like through the university as well. The same one that like we use with Team Canada. And then like our university strength and conditioning coach that helped us prepare for the event as well. So yeah, we are kind of in a unique situation where we were like a university sports team. So we had all the university resources, and then like the additional ones, like the more specialized ones through Curling Canada as well, that any team would get.
Yeah, and we should say, you mentioned Dave Nedowin. Alyssa Nedowin was third for Maya Platt, and that's why Dave, I say close connection. You also have, obviously, Heather Nedowin, Canadian champion, and Beth Iskew's daughter, Allie, right, is on that team. So that's a lot of experience on that side. Like,
yeah, Beth won the Canadians with my mom when they went to the Worlds,
Okay.
and now both of their kids went to the Worlds at the same time as well.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. And so yeah, and yeah, obviously you have that resource. So how many people, I'm curious, did you talk to out of your own accord, or people maybe coming to you guys who had gone to a juniors before, or world juniors before, and giving you advice on what to expect and sort of how to approach it? Was that something you sought out to go to those people who you just mentioned, the Netherlands, your mom, or anybody else? Or obviously, as you say, there's tons of people in and around Edmonton and Alberta who have gone to this and been successful and would probably be happy to offer you advice. How many folks reached out, or did you reach out to seek out counsel?
Yeah, we had like good conversations with Scott Pfeiffer, and then like he was really helpful in getting us ready for the Worlds. And then so Jaden Newer, our third, his girlfriend went to the Worlds last year, or yeah, the year prior to us going, with the team from Nova Scotia, Lauren Ferguson. So
Yeah.
yes, and he talked to her about it. And then like in our initial meeting with Curling Canada, like they brought on some of the people from the year previous and who went to the Worlds to kind of give us an idea what to expect. Because I believe the women's side, they had to go through the bees last year as well.
Yeah, that sounds
Um,
right. Yeah.
yeah, so Lori Olson, I believe is her last name. She kind of gave us like a little rundown of like what to expect about the location that the championship was going to be run at, because like it's a little different being in like a very isolated place. You kind of just eat, sleep, and curl, and like don't really get to leave or see anything else than the place you're in. So she kind of prepared us for that, like the arena setting that we're in. Yeah, those were like the main people that we talked to, and then like Johnson Tao and Ben Morin on the team. They're from BC, so I'm sure they talked to Tyler Tardy or
Yeah.
the Tardy family kind of about their experience as well.
Yeah, you got a lot of folks through the Tardy connection that you could talk.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, that whole team went a bunch of times, but then Jacques Gauthier as well. They're cousins, I believe. So like a lot of folks to talk to. So the World Juniors, the A's, are in February. What was your mindset? How did you feel, say, getting on the plane, right? So it's in Loha, you got to go back to Finland. How did you guys feel? Like you get on the plane, I assume you had to connect through Toronto or Montreal or something, but you're getting on that plane, that overnight flight to go across the ocean. Like what were you feeling in that moment, and what were your expectations?
I think the second time was a little bit easier because you kind of knew what to expect. We took all the same connections going there and coming back. It's definitely a long day of travel. Some naps on airport seats were taken for sure. Yeah, I think it was definitely easier because like we went through it once already, knew what to expect in all the new places that we were going. But yeah, definitely like when we got there, arrived at the A's, like you can tell that they're put on as like two different events. It just seemed like you can tell like the stakes are higher at the A's, just like the environment's a lot different there.
All right, so you guys are at the Junior A's. You said there that the competition, you notice it's higher, the tensions are a little higher. How did you guys feel through the week, and how did you maintain whatever balance you guys needed to? It's especially when it's a situation where you're kind of curling and sleeping and eating, and there's not that much to distract you. Like just, I'm more curious off the ice. Like, how did you guys get through it? And do you feel like you were able to maintain whatever equilibrium I'm sure you were hoping to throughout the course of the week?
I think we tried to keep everything pretty similar to how we treated the bees. So like at the bees, we yeah, it was pretty much just eat, sleep, and curl, and rest as well. So you're like these events are long events. You got to make sure you're resting your body, especially as a front end player. Like you're resting your body as much as you can. So like when we weren't on the ice, Like we might have gone to watch the girls a couple of times. If they had if we played an early game, they played the midday game. We might have gone to watch a couple ends of that. But most of the time we'd just be like back in our rooms, resting up, kind of doing whatever we felt we needed to do to be ready for the next game. Something that was a little bit different with the A's as well is we had some some of our family flew over, whereas like at the B's, nobody flew over. They were kind of hoping we'd make the A's. So I know like our Skip Johnson, his parents and his brother flew over. Jaden's parents flew over. Zach's mom flew over, and then my parents, all my grandparents, then my girlfriend and her parents flew over as well. So we had a larger we actually had fans at this one.
People were making noise in the crowd. Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
Big change. Yeah.
So yeah, we tried to treat it just as similarly that as we did the Bees. Trying especially since we kind of experienced everything, we didn't want to go and change it all up on ourselves again. Yeah, so kind of going in with the same mindset that we did with the Bees and trying to keep the same routines that we had.
Yeah, so again, I don't want to talk too much about the result. The result was not obviously what you guys wanted.
Yeah.
Clearly. But it's not terrible, right? You guys went 4-5. That's nothing to be ashamed about. The field is really good.
Yeah, we were two wins away from being 3 positions up or something too. I don't.
Yeah, it's really close. Yeah, when you look at the standings and you go into that last draw, you guys are 4-4, and tough finish in the game. It was Switzerland, I think, in the last draw. Denmark, excuse me, in the last draw. So a tough finish there, but that is what it is. And then you did have the opportunity to, the women's team was in the playoffs, so you go cheer them on. And so Canada had some representation in the playoffs, but independent of the result, let's set that aside. How would you summarize the week there in Loja at the World Junior A's, and what the experience was like for you and what it meant to you and the guys on the team?
It was whenever you get to represent your country, it's definitely a big honor. So we got the chance to do it twice, which is even cooler. So we were definitely we were there for one thing, and that was trying to win Canada another medal. Though it didn't happen, it was still a once in a lifetime experience for us, and something I don't think we'd ever really forget. Definitely a really cool experience, and something that, especially being from Canada, a really competitive country to get out of. Even getting out of the provincial level is extremely tough. So definitely something that we were all really, really excited about and really, really grateful to have the opportunity to do.
And what is the social side of an event like that? Obviously, all the teams who are there are high-level teams, want to win. Yeah, okay, we get all that. But you're also a bunch of 20 and unders who are there. And I would imagine during the week it was relatively tame. But at the end of the week, there's always a banquet at these things. Just on the social side of it, how would you kind of, obviously you haven't played at a men's world championship as yet, but compared to say a week on tour or a typical spiel, that kind of social side of it, what did that look like for you guys?
Yeah, there's they have the players lounge there. So sometimes after eating lunch or something, we'd maybe go in there, play a little bit of ping pong, and there might be another team there. But like you said, during the week, it was pretty much all business. We're there for curling and not to hang out with some other guys that are there, right? So we pretty much only went to the players lounge or somewhere else if we wanted, maybe our roommate was sleeping or something and we didn't really feel like sleeping, maybe went for a walk or went to the players lounge or something. But yeah, the banquet we didn't really get a chance to socialize at that either because our bus for the airport the next morning was leaving at like 3 a.m. So we went to the banquet. Then we pretty much, after the banquet was on, we maybe hang out with the teams for a little while, said hi to like some of the guys that we made friends with over the week, and then basically went back to our hotel rooms to pack up and get ready to get on the bus to come back to Canada. So
Yeah, that's an early morning for a long day, right? Going
yeah,
there is
exactly.
long too, but coming back I sometimes feels longer.
Coming back is even worse. The jet lag, I found
Yeah.
it hit me a lot worse. And like I had like 3 midterms I had to write, I think within like 2 weeks of being back as well. So like switch from curling right back to school. So not much time for other stuff.
Yeah, so let's talk about that side of it. That it's in February, the 17th to 24th or something like that, around those
Mhm.
dates, sort of mid to late February. How did you actually try to balance that, knowing that you are a full-time student at the University of Alberta, and this is not like, the quarterback on the football team at major school in the US where they're probably not going to class that often. Uh,
Yeah.
like, you guys actually do have to go to class and have assignments to do, and yet you're gone for a week leading into or as part of midterm season. How did you manage that side of the curling and the academics?
I think I was lucky and didn't have to defer any of my midterms because I think they were scheduled for after we got back. But I know I've been in like I think for the World Junior Bs, it was right around final season, so I had to defer some of my finals, and I was actually writing my like first term finals months into the second term of last year. So yeah, not the most fun thing, but most professors are like, especially for midterms, they're not as strict as finals as long as like you provide them proof that you're actually doing what you're doing. They're like, okay, yeah, we can. You either like defer the weight to the final, or you just like rate the midterm at a different time. And it helps a lot that like Rob is also like a member of the faculty at the university. So if we need, like, he just writes them an email, get like verifies all the information that all of our professor needs, and then like I think he's even able to proctor exams for us. So we could have even written them in Finland if we needed to, but I think if given the option, most of us would have just said wait till we're back in Canada to write them. But yeah, it's definitely like you got to be really good at managing your time and making sure you're like blocking off all of your hours pretty well.
Then you come home, so you've gone through this, and then you're still on Team Davies, and you guys are still competing through the rest of the season. Just what is that like to come home from an event that you've peaked for? It's sort of, as you say, a once in a lifetime type thing. You come home. Was it hard at any point to, head on over to the club on a Wednesday night or whenever you guys would go practice, or like did you need time to kind of process what that experience was, or were you cool just like, all right, let's go back and practice, play games? Like what was that transition like?
I think it would have been a little bit tougher if we like made the playoffs and lost in like the finals or something, but because we were out a little bit earlier in the event, we had a little bit of time to process it all while we were in Finland. And I think I don't remember if we did or not. We might have got like a week break off of practices or something when we got back, just maybe give us some time to catch up on school. But yeah, I didn't find it too difficult. I don't know like how Zach did, but yeah, for me it was like had a couple of days in Finland to really process everything and get through it all. And then when we were back in Canada, it was like, okay, go time for studying for school. And no, then the Alberta provincials were like the next priority.
Now that you've gone through this, and as we said at the start, you've now aged out of juniors, and you guys were not the first, but among the first to go through this new system of winning the Canadian juniors in the spring and then playing in the World Juniors the following season, and having that whole summer to really get your schedule in order, prep for it, do whatever it is that you need to do. And this is a relatively new change. Canadian Juniors used to be much earlier in January, and then you go right to the World Juniors after that. I would imagine that relegation has partly to do with part of the change, but Curling Canada, when they made the change, also said that, well, they want the junior season to last longer. They don't want competitive junior teams to really be done in January. So that was part of their rationale. But having gone through and won the Canadian Juniors, having participated in the World Juniors, where do you stand on how this structure is for juniors? And is this new schedule, do you think, beneficial to the teams and setting them up for success?
I think so. It was a little bit different for us as well because we won the Canadians with Ben as second. And then, of course, he was an overager, so he couldn't come to the Worlds with us. So then we brought Zach on for that. But I think it gives you like the entire summer to really do kind of like the off-season planning and stuff. And then you come back, you get to play at the points bet, which is like a pretty high pressure situation. You're on like national TV probably for like the first time playing against one of the top teams, or I think they seed the Canadian junior winners pretty like 15th, I think. So you're pretty low. So you're playing against, no, they seeded us last because we played against Carruthers. So you're playing against like the top team in Canada. Or did they seed us? I don't remember.
I would imagine, yeah. In either 14, 15, or 16, I would imagine.
Yeah, you're at the
where
bottom
you guys
somewhere
were.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're playing against like a top men's team in Canada. So like you might even get to play against Gushu, right? And then you have like almost the whole season to kind of refine your game, work with really high level coaches with Curling Canada, kind of just prepare for that game and just planning your season around that. So I liked it. Like it gave us lots of time to really, I guess, like integrate Zach into the team and figure all that out. It might be a little bit different for a team that isn't going through like a lineup change after they win Canadians. But I think like working with Scott Pfeiffer was really, really great for us, and having like all those resources were great.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the flip side would be if you win in January and go in February, you don't need a lineup change because everyone is still the same age in the same season. But that's an interesting point you make, that it gives you more time with the coaches, with more time on the practice, with all those resources. Whereas in the other scenario, you probably only get the month or whatever it is to take advantage of that. So I think that does set up you guys for future success. So I'm curious, at the end of this season, now that we sit here in June, if you take us back a year, so you've won the Canadian Juniors, you're setting up your schedule and planning for the next season. How would you assess yourself personally as a player over the last year, or comparing yourself to where you were last year, having gone through this experience with the team, having the resources you had available to you this year? Just where are you as a player compared to last year?
I think I've definitely like made big strides, especially like as a front end player, and kind of in like that non-throwing role. Like I played skip for a while, went down to second, and I think this was my third year playing front end, so still relatively like new to that side of the game. So getting to work with someone like Scott Pfeiffer, who's one of the best front end players in the world, was really, really great for me, and I think for my development as a front end player. Yeah, I think just like this entire process, like getting to play at a Worlds representing Canada, like having like all of that pressure on you, and then getting all that experiences at like a pretty young age is I think pretty good for definitely a better curler than I was a year ago looking back at it.
And then just to wrap up, because we have seen a decline in men's and women's play of the teams who go into provincial championships and territorial championships across the country. I'm not sure with the state of juniors in terms of just overall numbers, but overall the sport at the highest level does seem to be contracting a little bit. So having gone through it again, what would you say the biggest benefits of playing high level competitive junior curling is, and also some of the biggest challenges that are facing people who want to play at that level at the juniors?
If you want to be the best junior team, you can't just be playing junior events. You got to be playing you got to be challenging yourself, right? Because if you're the best junior team in your province and you're kicking everybody's butt, you're not going to really get much better because you're not having any challenge there. So kind of reaching a little bit higher and trying to punch above your belt is probably a better bet. Integrating a bunch of some men's events into that and just trying to play at a higher level. Now I think there's a bunch of U25 events popping up, at least in Alberta there's a couple. So even having junior teams playing that and play against Nate Young's team is a team that's still in that category, and they're a great team in that age group, and you get to play against these junior teams that might have not had the chance to go represent Canada somewhere, but are still really, really good and might be a little bit better than what you're seeing in your province.
Yeah, that's really what it is, right? It's getting reps, it's playing high level games and getting into it. And it does seem to be hard to do that. You need resources, both financial and otherwise, but
Mm-hmm.
The more we can get that. And I think that U25 stuff, the next gen stuff, that's really important and a wonderful initiative that I think one of them is Curling Canada, but there's other ones that you've seen that aren't Curling Canada as well, that other groups and folks are
trying to bridge that gap between the junior level play and the men's level play, because there's such a big difference between the preciseness of the play that you see between the two levels, and being able to bridge that gap is something that is really important.
So mentioned it a little bit off the top, but plans moving forward, do you have aspirations or hopes to play at the men's level at a high level? Is this something you want to keep doing, be a tour player, get out there, look at slams, that kind of stuff? Or what do you envision for yourself in curling moving forward?
Yeah, I think so. So not playing with Team Davies this coming year. I'm playing with Team Balance, with James Balance. He was the third for Ryan Parent last year. So hopefully going to make a good run in Alberta this year. And then potentially come back to the Northwest Territories this year to play men's playdowns here with maybe my dad. We'll see. That kind of stuff is still up in the air.
Yeah.
Maybe attend the Briar this year. That would be pretty cool. Yeah, but definitely hoping to continue curling on the tour and reach that next level in my career.
Well, we will be watching and cheering you along from here in Ottawa and rooting for you and wishing you all the best. Congratulations on a wonderful season for you and the guys. And I thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us tonight.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. Thanks for having me on.
So there you have it, my chat with Adam Naugler. Again, I thank him for his time and congratulate him on a wonderful season and a wonderful junior career as he now makes the transition into the men's game. One other thing I just wanted to comment on really quickly before we step away here. We haven't done an episode since the announcement was made that Brendan Botcher is not going to play in the 4-person game this season and seemingly for the rest of the quad. And instead he is going to coach Team Homan and play with Rachel Homan in mixed doubles. Big announcement here. A bit of a surprise, I think, for some of us, just given that Brendan Botcher is not somebody who you would expect to not play, that he's young in the sport and very good as a skip. So it was a bit of a surprise for me to see that announcement. I was a little taken aback by it. Overall, I don't really have any real strong thoughts about it, to be honest, other than I was a little surprised by it. I thought Brendan would put together a team for the rest of the quad. He's decided not to. I think when he talks about some of the benefits that could come from that for him, I think those are very reasonable and make sense. I think there might be some downsides to it as well. I think he's acknowledged that to some degree as well. So very curious to see how it plays out with him and Rachel on the mixed doubles level, how he enjoys the coaching side of it. And then obviously what happens after the end of the quad, when we do expect there to be some rather seismic changes potentially on the men's side of Canadian curling. So that's kind of my thoughts on that one, to be honest. No real hot takes on the Brendan Botcher announcement. Just that it took me a little bit by surprise, but it's been a few weeks now, and any potential hot take that I might have had, which I don't think I had in the moment, is gone now. So that's it. Just wish everybody the best and a good season coming up once we get to the fall and the resumption of the competitive curling schedule. We'll look forward to that. But first, we got a whole summer of fun curling content to get through. So if you have not yet, please do subscribe to the show wherever you get your shows, likes, comments, all that good stuff, shares, whatever else. All that stuff helps us, keeps the show growing. Of course, head on over to gameofstonespod.com. All of our past episodes are there, plus a link to the merch. And you can follow along everything we got going on social media at Game of Stones Pod, except for Facebook, where it's at Game of Stones Podcast. And if you want to let us know what you would like to hear on the show, Game of Stones Podcast at gmail.com. So thank you so much, everybody, for listening. I do appreciate it. Scott appreciates it, even though he left you all high and dry this week. But he will be back at some point. Definitely one episode coming forth at some point. I don't know when, where I'll be flying solo. Again, another interview that I'm very excited about. But Scott will be back at some point over the summer. So have no fears. He will be back with us soon. And I hope you will be with us as well. But until then, keep those brooms on the ice and don't dump that intern.
Make the final.